Before I get into today's video, I wanted to say a quick thank you to everyone who left tips in my tip jar. I just checked it and I wasn't actually expecting to find anything in there, and so I was very surprised and very grateful. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. So, I have the opportunity to do a video at this time because kids are actually asleep, which never ever happens, but today they are. And usually by the evening, I am completely exhausted, so I figured this was a good time to take advantage of a little bit of quiet in the house. I was thinking about I was thinking about some of these questions that I get in the comments. I've had multiple men now telling me, why do you make videos about what men should do? Why is it always about what men should do differently, and it's never about what women should do differently? And I've gotten a few guys who get kind of annoyed with me. It's like, why are you always telling men what to do? Why do men always need to be the ones who change? And the reason for that is there's multiple reasons. Number one, my viewership is almost 100% male. Every once in a while, like a random woman will come onto my channel, take a look around, and then probably run away screaming. So if I do like lots and lots of advice on what women should do for men, no women are going to watch it. Men will watch it, and maybe it will make you guys feel better about yourselves, but it's not going to actually achieve anything. It's definitely not going to improve anything because no women watch my channel. So that's the first reason. That's a pretty big reason. The other reason is, well, because men watch my channel, if I'm going to be giving any kind of advice on how to improve situations for people, it's going to be targeted at things that men need to change. And I kind of wanted to talk about something I've been thinking about in reading a lot of Manosphere books, a lot of Manosphere articles, and just Manosphere literature in general. And that's the fact that the Manosphere itself, has multiple very, very different audiences. And so what any one person writes that's advice to men is probably going to speak to one audience more than the other audiences. And so it's one of those things where it can be really good advice or really, really bad advice, and it depends on who reads it. Which is, I don't know if everything is like that, but it's something that I'm definitely noticing more and more in the Manosphere. And so I was trying to figure out how to illustrate that, and I was thinking, three guys log onto a forum. It sounds like the beginning of a bad joke, like three guys walk into a bar. Three guys log onto a forum, or even better, four guys. Four guys log onto a forum. And guy number one is pretty young, and his girlfriend just cheated on him and dumped him. He doesn't know why, and he's trying to figure out just what happened. And, he's a young guy, he's relatively inexperienced, and maybe she was just not that great of a girl. It's like maybe she's the kind of girl who cheats on a lot of guys, and she's not a nice person. Could be that simple. So he's out there, he's on the Manosphere, he's trying to figure out, just what's making women tick, what motivated his girlfriend to cheat on him, why did all this crazy stuff happen, there's that guy. So that's guy number one. Guy number two has been single for a while. He has been trying to get a date and trying to get a date, and he cannot get a date, and he's starting to get really, really angry. He's been angry for a while, and I've seen these guys, they don't understand why they're not getting a date, and they're starting to think that maybe it's the women and not them. And, let's say, for instance, that guy number two has some behavioral issues that are a little bit off-putting. Because there have been some guys lately I've encountered who have some behavioral issues that are extremely off-putting, and they blame women, and they think it's all women, and it's like, if they realized how much their behavior is making women turn around and run in the other direction, it would probably startle them, because they're average-looking guys. There's nothing wrong with them. I think Elliot Rodgers actually kind of fell into that category a bit. Like, he was a perfectly normal looking dude. Like, there was nothing visually wrong with him. But, I've never actually sat down and listened to him speak. I need to do that someday perhaps, but I haven't done that. He had some issues, like was an angry dude. I don't think anyone would question that he was a very angry dude. And I think a lot of guys look at it and say, well, he was just turned down by women and rejected by women and he was angry because of that. It's like, no, women aren't going to want to be with somebody who's that angry. Women aren't going to want to be with someone who's got that many issues. Like, guy number 2 in this story is the kind of guy who really, really needs to take some time and look at himself and look at his own behaviors and look at his own attitudes and consider the possibility that maybe he's the reason women are always running away from him and why they don't want to have anything to do with him. Because if you meet one of those guys, and I have met those guys, as a woman, I do not want to have anything to do with those guys because they're giving off so many red flags. They're just red flags. There's just all red flags. There's nothing but red flags there. And it's like, I don't understand how some of these guys expect women to date them when all they're doing is just showing red flags every which direction. So that's guy number 2. You got guy number 1 who's sitting there going, I'm confused. Why'd she cheat on me? What happened there? You got a guy number two who's like just absolutely fed up with women. He's sure that it's women by this point. He's really mad at them. He's really angry. He's really resentful. He hasn't been able to have any luck with women pretty much his entire life, and the more discouraged he gets, the more he gets turned down. The angrier he gets, the more resentful he gets, and the more red flags he puts out to women. So it's a really nasty cycle. Guy number 3, on the other hand, he's in his own private hell. He was married, he had kids, and then one day she divorced him and took his house, took his car, took his kids, took a lot of his money. He's, trying to figure out where to live, and he's staying in less than ideal housing conditions. Maybe he's crashing on a friend's couch. Maybe he's staying at a hostel. Maybe he's in his car. I don't know, really bad situations. And I've seen these situations, and I've seen women just completely take a guy and like just do horrible things to him. Horrible things. And so, this guy's looking at it, and his wife was a real piece of work, and maybe he shouldn't have married a woman who was a real piece of work, but how was he supposed to know she was this much of a monster at the time that he married her? You can't always tell. And then the judge was some woman power advocate who just really did not see any reason that he should still have any rights to his house or his kids or his money or his car or really the rest of his life, honestly. And this guy, he has some reasons to be angry at women and distrustful of women. So he's on the forum too. So you got guy number 1, why did she cheat on me? Very young guy, very inexperienced. Guy number 2, red flags everywhere. Guy number 3, he's seen some horrible things in his life, and honestly, he's struggling with depression. He doesn't know if he's ever going to see his kids again. He's wondering what the point of it all is. He's in a mess. Like, he's in a big, very big nightmare. And then guy number 4 is actually a guy that I knew. And I'm mentioning him because he's important too. Guy number 4 married a woman, and he might have had some issues with narcissism. In fact, we're pretty sure he had some issues with narcissism, and definitely some issues with alcohol. And he got drunk and crashed her car. He cheated on her a bunch. He brought home some STDs. He got drunk and hit her several times. And eventually she looked at it and said, "That's it. I've had enough. You need to get out." Now, she owned the house going into the marriage, so she literally just kicked him out of the house. And the cops actually, who came when he beat her because he was drunk, told her that that's what she needed to do. So, and, I mean, he was not nice to her. He was a real monster to her. And it's funny because I never would have guessed that about him earlier. Like, I never would have guessed that he could be so mean. When I knew him before he got married. So this is a real guy, but these are also real scenarios. There are those guys out there in the world. So he goes on the Manosphere forum, and of course, And this is why I'm using him as an example. He blames her. Now, when I knew him before he got married, he blamed his first wife for the complete collapse of his first marriage. And I felt really bad for him because I'm, I guess, stupid and naive. And then he blames his second wife for the complete collapse of his second marriage and claims that she was taking advantage of him, claims that she was using him, claims that she was, abusing him. She got the house, so she stole his house, all this stuff, even though it was her house that she owned before the marriage, that. So you get all these four guys on a forum, and what do you say to these four guys? Like, when they're talking among the four of them, when they're talking among themselves, the only thing any of their problems actually has in common is women. And so it's very easy for them to all conclude that women are the problem. Guy number one, of course, is looking at it like, well, I had a woman cheat on me, and that was really horrible, and maybe women are the problem. Guy number two is very convinced that women are the problem because women don't want to have anything to do with him, so obviously women are at fault. Even though no woman would want to be around someone who acts the way he does. Guy number three, well, his wife, was really mean and cruel. We don't know how mean and cruel the judge was. Maybe she was just extremely neglectful. But either way, it wasn't particularly good setup for him. And guy number four, well, he feels like he's been done wrong by, so he's telling everybody what a victim he is. And of course, he's a little bit narcissistic, so he's telling them all about how he was victimized and he's the biggest victim there and everything's horrible for him. Guy number three, of course, probably almost certainly the biggest victim there, but he's probably not making quite as much noise as guy number four. You get these four guys on a forum, and what can you say to all four of them that is going to actually communicate anything meaningful to these four different people in these four very different situations? They all have different problems. And yes, all four of them have problems that revolve around women, but the problems themselves are very vastly different. Guy number one, maybe he just dated a bad girl. Go back out there, try and find a nice one, see what happens. Don't be too attached to one. If it just doesn't work out with her, go find someone else. Go find someone better. This is the whole idea of spinning plates. Don't get hooked on your one-itis. Go find someone new because clearly she just wasn't worth it. Guy number two, please seek help. Like, that's really the problem. The problem isn't women. Women are avoiding you because you're acting like a crazy person. And by this point, you've gotten so angry and so resentful and so bottled up. People are seeing it from a mile away. Like, you talk to this guy, and I mean, these guys are out there. You talk to them, and you can just feel the rage seething around under the surface. It's like, this guy's ready to just explode at someone, and I don't want to be there when he does. You turn around, you get as far away from him as you can. You end the subject, the conversation as quickly as possible, excuse yourself to go to the bathroom, and instead just run out of the bar. Like, there are those guys out there, and I know he's this caricature that I'm building is an extreme example, but I think that there are a lot of guys out there that I've spoken to who kind of fit this category where they're just so angry, they blame women for everything. They think that women are at fault, and they completely neglect the fact that maybe sometimes it's something to do with them as well. Like, they're partially responsible for their lack of success with women, and they need to realize that. Maybe take some time and get themselves fixed up and kind of stabilize themselves a little, and then maybe they'll have a little bit more luck with women. Does that mean that women are any less treacherous? No, women are still treacherous, as guy number one and guy number three are plenty happy to point out to you. Women are incredibly treacherous. But if you're a hot mess, it doesn't really matter if you find a good woman or a treacherous woman. You're still not going to be able to keep her around for more than a few seconds that it takes for her to realize that you're not a good person to be around. Guy number three, I don't even know what to tell him. Like, I've known those guys. I've seen those guys in my own life where it's like all you can say is I'm sorry, man. I don't know what to do. Like I've seen it happen too many times. And not necessarily with the divorce, but I have seen women who got pregnant and once they had a kid, once they had his kid, they held all the cards, they knew it, and they were just cruel slave drivers at that point. And I've seen that happen on multiple occasions, and it's horrible. It is a horrible setup. It's a very, very abusive situation. What do I do about it? I don't know. I don't know. I do not know what I as an individual can do about it. If anyone has any suggestions, I'm totally open for suggestions, but there's a lot of people going around saying, well, we need to change the law. It's like, that's great. Is there a petition that I can sign? Is there a group I can join? Is there something that I can actually do as an individual? Because sitting around here and just saying, we need to change things, that's nice, but I don't know how that's actually going to change anything. Like, it's one of those tricky things. Like, I do not want to waste my time blowing hot air. So as sorry as I am that situation is happening, even in this day right now with people that I know, it's happening. I really don't know what I can do about it. And that's horrible, but that's it. Guy number 4, of course, he's a narcissist. I mean, what are you going to tell him that's going to make him change his mind about anything? He's way too busy playing his victim role, playing that up, and trying to get attention and sympathy and, positive feedback toward himself, because that's what he's doing. And he doesn't care about anything else beyond that. He cares about getting all the positive attention he can. He cares about being the biggest, grandest victim in the victim world. And he doesn't care if he's making things worse. He doesn't care if he's at fault. He does not care. And there's no advice that I can think of to give that guy, because he doesn't want to change anything. I mean, unless it involves him winning, he really doesn't care. And so, I look at dating advice. I look at the mystery method and all this dating advice that's in the mystery method, and it's like, well, some of that is really good advice if you're guy number 1. And it's like, hey, I'm trying to think. Like, even with negging, it's like, that can be played in 2 different ways. Say guy number 1 does a little bit of negging. He does a little playful teasing and, just kind of relaxes around the woman and tries to act like, hey, she's just one of the guys and we're all just having fun. That could be really good for guy number 1. Guy number 4 takes something like that. He's like, oh, I know exactly how to do this. And he just beats her down and beats her down and beats her down until her ego is completely destroyed and she's just this little abuse victim that he can manipulate any way he wants to. It's like, oh, that's wonderful. Like, yeah, we totally want to be advising any human being to do that to another one. These are 2 very different people who are taking the same advice, and they could possibly use it in 2 very, very different ways. And it's like, how do you give advice in the Manosphere? How do you give good advice in the Manosphere? I think the only, one thing that I did see that was really good, honestly, and the more I think back over it, I didn't like my review of the book, and I think that was just the way the book was structured. It was very simple, and it was very straightforward writing. And so I didn't feel like there was a lot that I could talk about when I did my review of it. But No More Mr. Nice Guy, honestly, was a really good book, because it was all about taking what you can control, what's directly within your power, which is yourself, and making that as functional and healthily masculine as you can. And then going out into the world with this new kind of improved mindset, this new understanding of how you are put together and how that's going to affect your relationships. It wasn't a lot of woman blaming. And it's not that I don't want to blame women, because, like, for example, with guy number 3, let's all blame women for that situation, because that's awful. But when it comes to day-to-day living advice, like self-help kind of advice, blaming women doesn't get anything done. And so, and I've had people who have commented and said, why don't you blame women more? Why aren't you saying that women are responsible for this? Why aren't you calling women out for all their horrible misdeeds? It's like, well, we already know what their horrible misdeeds are. What would I be saying that would be new or interesting or engaging or educational or, enlightening to anybody? Nothing. I'd just be paying lip service to the feelings and emotions of people who are angry at women, which seems kind of like a waste of time to me, so I don't do it. Blaming women for all of men's problems is completely unrealistic because guy number 2, his problems aren't women. His problems are him. Guy number 4, his problems aren't women. His problems are him. These guys exist, and these guys are out there in the manosphere, and these guys are on your forums talking with you, telling you about their experiences with women, and largely blaming women for all their negative experiences. And sometimes you're going to pick up on that. Sometimes you're going to notice, hey, this guy who's saying that, he's an incel and women are just horrible and all this other stuff. This guy is pretty erratic. This guy is pretty out there. This guy has some serious issues. Maybe that's the reason he's not having great luck with women. There are those moments where you talk with somebody and you figure that out, and then there are other moments where maybe you can't tell, maybe you don't know. Maybe he's just a really angry guy who's angry at women, and we don't know what his personal private life is like. We don't know what his behavior in public is like. We don't know if he's got some sort of issue. And I mean, when I'm saying issues, I'm not talking about like just physical issues, because guys get hung up on physical issues a lot. It's like, yeah, physical issues can be a problem, and physical issues can be something that you have to overcome sometimes. But sometimes it's behavioral. Like, and when I say behavioral, like, people want to do the whole, well, I'm an incel for mental health reasons. It's like, I can kind of understand that for guys who are struggling with, like, something in the autism spectrum, where it's like, I'm trying to figure out people, and it's not coming easily to me. But they realize that their problem is figuring out people and how people work and making that fit together. They realize that there's a problem that they are struggling with. I'm not talking about those guys, really. I'm talking about the guys who are angry at women because women reject them without ever considering that maybe women reject them because they have severe anger management problems, or they have highly erratic behavior, which might be related to, which could be related to mental health problems. It's all related to mental health problems, but you know what I mean. Do they actually take the time to try and manage their mental health problems and get their mental health problems under control, or do they just expect the world to warp itself around them so that they can live a comfortable life without having to change anything? That set of advice, that set of personal issue management kinds of advice, that's really not going to help guy number 3 whose wife left him. Like, he just wants to see his kids again. He just wants some semblance of his old life back. Maybe he can't have a family, but could he at least have a place to live? Could he at least, be able to keep enough of his money that he works hard for to pay his bills and survive and, live an okay life and feed himself? These are vastly different problems that vastly different men are all handling. But they're all in the same forum, and they're all mad at women. And women are to blame for many, many of these problems, but not all of them. So, yeah, I spend a lot of time talking about, what men can do for themselves, how men can try to attract women. I'm really excited at some point when I'm not pregnant and when I can think a little more clearly. I want to do a book review of Dr. Sean T. Smith's book, The Tactical Guide to Women. I believe that book is about finding a good woman instead of avoiding a bad woman. I can't remember exactly, I don't know because I haven't read the book, but I believe when he was talking about what the book's about, that was something he touched on. And the idea is, instead of constantly having these lists of what to avoid in a toxic woman, how to see the danger signs, because there's like a million danger signs, and women do that too, where it's like, well, if a man doesn't open the door for me, then he's not going to get a second date because I had a bad boyfriend one time who didn't open the door for me, and so that's just a sign to me that this guy is just like that other guy, and it's like, I mean, it is entirely possible for you to meet a girl who has bright blue hair who is actually really awesome and she just likes the color blue. Sometimes that happens. Um, there's a reason I think that guys say that the bright colors are kind of a danger sign. They're a red flag. But I mean, if you listen to some of these dating coaches out there, it's like everything is a red flag. Just avoid it all. Every woman is toxic. Um, so it would be really, really good to have, a clinical psychologist perspective. What should you be looking for in a woman? Like, if you're looking for a woman, what actually makes a good woman? I'd be fascinated by that. And maybe that would help you guys out too. Like, it's not going to tell women what they should do to change themselves, but it will tell you what to look for when looking for a good woman who's already done the hard work of changing herself for the better. Because honestly, no woman is ever going to watch, unless something crazy happens and the world like kind of shifts a little on its axis. You are not going to see women watching my channel in high numbers. Like, that just doesn't happen. So me making videos about what women should do to change, I'm sorry guys, I don't see that happening very much at all, because the only people who'd watch it would be men, which kind of defeats the point. Anyway, I think that's everything for now. Um, we've lost the cat. He fell asleep. So I will talk to you guys later.